Alright, everybody, so I'm here with my buddy Declan, and today Sony decided to randomly reveal the PlayStation 5 controller, the Dualsense as it's being called. And basically, we're just going to be chatting about this controller because it seems like some of the opinions online are a little mixed about it, and everybody's probably going to be doing this. So I just thought it would be fun to sit down and chat for a bit. So, hi, Declan.
Hi, Nick.
So you sent me this earlier today over Twitter, so you saw this before me, and I guess we're just gonna open it up with what was your initial reaction to seeing this controller?
Yeah, so I saw the PlayStation tweet like maybe 30 seconds after it was sent out, and my immediate thought was I didn't like the design. Uh, as a lot of other people have pointed out, it kind of looks like an Xbox controller because of like just kind of the curves to it, and the
Mm-hmm.
color scheme is weird. So right off the bat, I wasn't a fan.
Yeah, you mentioned the color scheme, and that's the biggest thing that stands out to me is just looking odd about this controller. Like, there's a lot of memes going around in the like comments for their tweet and everything. Like, a bunch of people saying it looks like Eve from Wall-E or like stormtroopers and stuff, which it kind of does. Like, it's not unwarranted,
Hmm.
but the decision to go with the two color thing, it's just I don't want to say it looks bad, but it doesn't look good.
I'd go as far as to say it looks bad. I actually like I'm on Twitter now, and I just saw a guy send out one where he photoshopped it to be all black,
Hmm.
and it doesn't look bad. Uh,
I was wondering about that. Like, I was actually
yeah,
gonna throw it into Photoshop later on and see what kind of color combos I could get working. But like, it's good to know that all black doesn't look bad because that's probably what a lot of people want. Is
hmm,
just to have it all black, even if the console ends up being white, which I would guess, based on how the controller looks, they're probably gonna do some sort of white or white and black thing.
ooh, I hadn't thought of that. I don't like it either.
I mean that's what I think. There's not many consoles that have a controller that looks drastically different than what the console will look like.
Right. It's just a weird thought since it's like I just got PS2 and replacement PS3, and so it's like I have the 2, 3, and 4 all lined up,
Hmm.
and it'd be odd to have a 5 that's white and just extremely different.
So let's talk a little bit about the actual construction of the controller based on what we can tell from the picture. So
Hmm.
basically, it in a very basic sense, it is an evolution of the DualShock 4 more than any of the other ones. I mean, you still have your D-pad buttons, you still have your face buttons, you have the options button and the capture button, which is technically the share button. You
Hmm.
have the touchpad returning. You have a PlayStation button, it looks like, which is just the logo.
Yeah,
And
I actually kind of like that part of it.
yeah, it's a neat little touch. You have your thumbsticks, your L1, R1, L2, and R2. The controller this time around has a built-in microphone, which is interesting. I was reading a little bit about the functionality on the article that they released with it, and basically it works like a microphone. So they say you don't need a headset, but they suggest if you're going to be talking for extended periods of time that it's good to have the headset handy. So it's not a
Right.
replacement, but at least it's better than that weird little like earbud thing that they shipped with the PS4 that was like super uncomfortable.
I don't even know what you're talking about, so I can assume it was bad.
Yeah, most of the PS4s, at least mine did, came with it was a single earbud with a wire that you could plug into the controller. It didn't have two, but it had the mic built in and that. And it was just like it was really cheap plastic. It just was
Hmm.
bad. So I'm glad at least it's contained in the controller and you don't need anything extra to get like the basics down.
Right.
Obviously having a headset's going to be the way to go though. Um the as you sort of mentioned before, it looks like they sort of mixed a DualShock 4 with an Xbox One controller. Like it's not as not to say that the PS4 controller is slender, but like it's not as slender. It definitely looks like it's built more. Like it's a thick controller.
Hmm.
Um it I'm wondering how heavy it's going to be because they've been talking about a lot of the new tech that's inside with like the haptic feedback with the triggers and everything. I'm wondering if the controller had to be bigger because they couldn't fit all of it into the form factor of the older ones.
Right.
Um, but also the big thing that you pointed out to me earlier was that between the triggers now it's more like rounded and curved, whereas on the older controllers it's not like a U shape, but it's more all of the sides of the controller like conform into the middle, whereas this it sort of looks like one big piece.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just kind of a design they've had for all pretty much all of the previous controllers, where it's like the triggers kind of stand out on the sides,
Mm-hmm.
um, and there's like a bit of a recess in the middle.
So
It's,
yeah.
I mean, functionally, I'm sure it'll end up not really being a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
but stylistically, compared to all the others, it's just kind of odd for them to change it that way.
And the one other thing that a bunch of people are noting, stylistic wise, is that the face buttons actually aren't colored this time.
Hmm.
They're just going with a gray and white, basically, which it makes me wonder if they like if games going forward are gonna ditch the colors because like all the button prompts in PlayStation games beyond them being like your X, circle, square, triangle, they're all color coded in game as well.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if going forward they're just gonna use the symbols or if this was purely just a color design choice and they only wanted to stick to the black and white with the blue light bar,
Hmm.
which we didn't even mention that the light bar is back. It's on the sides of the touchpad this time instead of on the top of the controller.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of like, well, the light bar in the front has never really meant anything to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really necessary. I know that in like the original PS4 controllers that they sent or sold, it didn't have that little bar on top of the touchpad.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have one of the newer ones that has it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that just moved over to the sides of the touchpad instead of the front.
Mm-hmm. One of the other things to note, they said that it's rechargeable like a lot of the other controllers, so that's not a really big deal. That's just a little bit different from Microsoft, which their Series X controller, I believe, still uses batteries.
Oh, that's weird.
Well, you can charge it, obviously, like you can get rechargeable batteries and everything, but all of the Xbox controllers have been battery operated, with the exclusion of the original Xbox.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe the Elite controller. The Elite controller might not take batteries, but it's so weird. Like my thoughts on the controller are basically that I like certain aspects of it. Like I can see that it's an evolution of the PlayStation controller, but at the same time just something seems off about it. Like it's really
I
hard to
think
pinpoint.
my problem with it is it doesn't look balanced. Like, I mean, especially with the black and white paint
Mhm.
scheme, it uh, feels like that. But even with the all black one that I saw, which I'm having trouble finding now, but it's like the grips seem too thin in a way,
Mhm.
at least like compared to the body of it. So it seems like super top heavy, like as if you don't have a lot to hold on to.
Right. Yeah, I can see that now that you're saying that. Like like you're going to be like tilting forward or something by just like holding it.
Yeah, it's like you won't know how ergonomic it is until you actually hold one.
Mhm.
But just based on these few pictures, it doesn't seem like it'll be as good as the four.
And like I feel like they could do a two-tone color approach and be successful, but this one just kind of looks weird. Like I actually saw a good comment that made me laugh that said that it looked like the controller was wearing a bra cuz like the
I
light
was thinking
bars
it
are
kind
like
of
the
looks like a
straps.
leotard
Yeah.
in a way. Yeah,
And
it's
it's
not
like
good.
it just looks it looks like the controller is just the white areas and that it's set in something
Mm.
almost. Like I don't know, like they picked a it's like I understand, like I can see why they did it this way, but at the same time, it's like it still looks weird. I don't know. Obviously, the new tech that they've been talking about is pretty exciting with like haptic feedback and like the adaptive triggers. Do you know much about that stuff?
No, I haven't really read anything about it. I've just like looked at it.
So basically, with like the trigger stuff, a lot of examples that they like PlayStation or Sony has given out is like you'd be able to tell the difference between like a machine gun versus a shotgun, like in your trigger pulls, like in the resistances. And like
Okay.
if you're like playing like a driving game, for instance, I think this is in the article that they released today, but like it'll feel different for a car driving through mud versus like sand or like a road, basically.
Hmm.
And it seems like they're really putting a lot of effort into inserting more like tactile stuff into the games as a result with
Right.
this controller than we've ever had before. I mean, obviously people are like uh familiar with like controller rumble and stuff like that, but this seems to be like more iterative on those aspects, which it's exciting stuff. Just like I don't, it's one of those things where it's like I don't know how much I'm really going to either benefit or notice it. Like I'm sure I will
Yeah.
notice it, like in instances where it's like designed and iterated on well in a game, but it's one of those like buzzwords where it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's like I have no idea what to say beyond that. Like,
Yeah. I just know something where it differs from all the past ones also around the D-pad and the other buttons. On everything else, it has like a flattened circle around them.
mm-hmm.
But with this, it's like the D-pad and all the buttons kind of sit just into the controller,
Right,
like
yeah,
with the curves. I don't know. I mean, I don't see that as good or bad necessarily.
just something
It's
to
just
note.
another, yeah.
So here's like a paragraph where they say, let's talk about the colors. Traditionally, our base controllers have a single color. As you can see, we went in a different direction this time around and decided on a two-tone design. Additionally, we changed the position of the light bar that will give it an extra pop. On the DualShock 4, it sat on the top of the controller, and now it sits at each side of the touchpad, giving a slightly larger look and feel. In all, we went through several concepts and hundreds of mock ups over the last few years before we settled on this final design. Dualsense has been tested by a wide range of gamers with a variety of hand sizes in order for us to achieve the comfort level we wanted with great ergonomics. Our goal with DualSense is to give gamers the feeling of being transported into the game world as soon as they open the box. We want gamers to feel like the controller is an extension of themselves when they're playing, so much so that they forget that it's even in their hands. Explanation point. So I guess that's another point to go off of is the name change, switching it up from the DualShock numbered lines to
Oh
DualSense.
yeah,
What do you think
I
about
hadn't even
that?
thought of that. Um, neither good nor bad.
I think
Uh,
DualSense is, I guess they're really trying, I don't know, to like to tie it to that tactileness, like
right, they're
the
just saying like it's more than just the typical rumble,
mm-hmm,
basically.
DualSense. Yeah, it's basically what you said. It's neither good nor bad. It's just
Hmm.
something interesting that they're really trying to iterate with all of the PlayStation 5, uh, just like new features and stuff.
Yeah. The more I look at the controller, like the more things I notice about it, and I think something that puts me off of it is that it makes me think of a third-party controller, like
I was
specifically the
going to say
way,
that earlier, that it
yeah,
seems like a third party looking design.
like the way that the white bars on around the touchpad kind of are angled out like that,
Mm-hmm.
and just how thick it is. It makes me think of third party, which is weird
Yeah.
considering that they obviously had to have spent a long time designing it.
There's a message at the bottom of the article as well from the new Sony Interactive Entertainment president and CEO Jim Ryan, which he says DualSense marks a radical departure from our previous controller offerings and captures just how strongly we feel about making a generational leap with PS5. The new controller, along with the many innovative features in PS5, will be transformative for gamers, continuing our mission at PlayStation to push the boundaries of play now and in the future. To the PlayStation community, I truly want to thank you for sharing this exciting journey with us as we head toward PS5's launch in holiday 2020. We look forward to sharing more information about the PS5, including the console design, in the coming months. So I guess this article is also suggesting that they are sticking to the 2020 date, as Microsoft has also been saying. A lot of people were thinking that maybe it'd get delayed because of coronavirus, but
Right.
it seems like both sides are still committing to that holiday launch this year.
So I'm assuming that means like November, basically.
Probably. They would probably want to get it out there before Black Friday. That would be
Right.
what most people are doing. So, they could try to, like, Xbox or Microsoft or Sony could maybe try to one up each other based on who gets their release date out there first and be like, oh, we're releasing in September or something like that. But it's likely going to be that end of the year time, uh,
Hmm.
in order to get all the holiday buying in.
I just noticed something else about the controller. This one I think is one that could actually have a decent impact on how it feels to hold it. If you notice, it actually has some kind of oddly sharp edges. Look at the bottom of the grips. It's like the black is kind of like a band that goes
Mm-hmm.
around the bottom, and there's a little ridge of the white part that actually sticks out like a millimeter or so.
Oh, right, yeah.
Uh, that's gonna be weird if you're like rubbing against that kind of ridge right there, because that's where like it's basically right where I have my pinkies when I play.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the outer white part, I assume, also has a ridge in it, and that's kind of where your palm goes.
Right.
So, I don't know how smooth that'll be.
Yeah, so much of this is just like, oh, we got to get your hands on it to be able to tell. So,
I guess.
like, a lot of it's
Yeah.
just conjecture at this point. But, like, yeah, it's an interesting design to say the least. Are there any, like, closing thoughts you have on talking about this controller design? Like, out of the Xbox Series X controller and the PS5 controller, like, who do you think's in a better spot right now?
Oh man. I mean, I follow Xbox so little that I don't actually remember what the X
Ba-
controller looks like.
Basically, it looks like the Xbox One controller, but with, like, a new D-pad.
Um. Oh right, it has the kind of weird squared left
Mm-hmm.
D-pad thing. I'd say theirs actually looks a bit better. I mean, it fits with their motif,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't go with a weird color scheme.
Yeah.
They keep saying it, but I have to wait to actually hold it and see all of the colors that they have with it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully they have a better color selection than this generation has had.
Yeah, that's something we didn't really touch on, but something that I've wanted to make a video on for a while is how disappointing the PlayStation 4 color schemes are for the controllers. Like,
Mm,
it's just so many of them that they release look so bad, and Microsoft has had such an advantage in this regard because they released that program that you can pay a little bit of extra money, but you can completely customize your controller. And it's like, I'd really like to see Sony do that, especially now that they're, like, right out of the gate, they're already having people complaining about the controller that's going to come in the box.
yeah.
So yeah, I would hope as well that they get some extra color designs. I would hope that at launch they have a one color one, because it seems like a lot of people are already being like, oh, does it come in black? Does it come in, like, whatever, whatever? So
Yeah.
I feel like a paint job, like, even technical build quality of the controller set aside, like, as long as they can have, like, new, like, different paint jobs at launch, I think some people might come around to it a little bit more. Also, I think part of it's just like, we had, like, this came out of nowhere today. Like, they just randomly tweeted it today, like, oh, here's the PS5 controller. So I think there's a little bit of a band-aid ripping off effect too with people, and after a little bit of time with it, I could see some people coming around to it. Just like right now, it yeah, I've said pretty much all I can say about it. It's just like, I like certain parts about it. Some parts look weird, and maybe after a little bit, or whenever I can get my hands on it, I'll come around to it. But
Hmm. Hopefully they make a paint job where it's like a classic PlayStation one, which I think they did for 4.
yeah, they do. They have
But
the 20th anniversary ones.
right. I always thought that looked kind of cool. And with this new one, since the PlayStation button is like the old, or it's the logo.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like just look at my PS2 where it's the red and yellow, blue, green logo on it. It'd be nice if that's like the PlayStation button, and
Yeah.
you know, they have it in the gray and everything.
Yeah, that'd be
I
really
think,
cool.
like, if I saw that, then the other design features of the controller itself would kind of be quelled a bit.
All right, well, thank you for chatting about this PS5
Mhm.
controller with me. It's definitely interesting, and I can't wait to see when they actually unveil the console at this point.
Yeah.
We're about 2 months out from when E3 would normally be taking place. I know Microsoft has said that they're still committed to doing a presentation. Sony hasn't said yet if they are. I think they would be they'd be shooting themselves in the foot if they didn't do anything this year. So, uh, at least around June is when I'm expecting to see the actual console.
I think Mark Cerny's going to be the one presenting.
I'm sure he'll come out for something, but I bet that they're gonna have somebody else because of that GDC talk.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, thanks for talking, Declan, and thank you guys for watching. You can check out some of our other videos on the channel, and we'll see you in the next one.
Later.